Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. We have Drew and Terry Edwards on the show today. And just seeing, we'll, I guess, give a few minutes for people to log in. It's 1 p.m., so 8 a.m. for Debbie in North America on the East Coast. Wonder what everybody is having for lunch. What are you guys going to, well, I assume you're going to eat after this, Terry, or have you guys eaten?
I tried to grab something before this, and I had some pasta and tomatoes and spilled it on my shirt, so I had to quickly go and change my shirt.
That's the shirt you should have worn.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I had matters of a tomato on my white shirt. So yes, I've had my lunch and so has my shirt.
Okay. How about you, Drew?
I'd had a sandwich, and then I've got a smoothie here as well that I drink as we go. What about you?
Well, I haven't eaten yet, so I just had a few crisps just to get me over the hunger pain. Some Pringles, and then and just water, and then I'm gonna have a Thai chicken curry after this, a green Thai curry.
Very nice, very nice.
So something spicy during a a hot day, always good.
Yeah, so you got some Pringles. Can I just say that other brands are available other than Pringles, and whatsoever.
Brilliant, I like that. Well, let's start. So maybe you guys can just introduce yourselves first, and so let's start with you, Terry.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Terry Edwards, and Drew, and we work with the owners and directors of independently owned recruitment and search firms. And our sole aim really is to share with recruiters how to get more business without having to cold call or whatever. So it's all around client attraction. So we work on two areas: client attraction and mindset. Now, a lot of people think it's two brothers working together because of my youthful experience, and lots of people think of that. But in fact, it's father and son. It's just that Drew's had a very hard life.
Is it his dad he has to blame for that?
Good shout. Good shout. Yeah, we work with recruiters all over the world.
Okay.
Programs all over the world.
So I guess we'll talk about maybe why some recruiters are doing well and some are not. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, and we'll start with that maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I'll hand over to Drew.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, again, yeah, lots of reasons. I mean, what area do you want to sort of dive into?
Sorry, say that again.
So there's lots of reasons. What area do you want to dive into, Terry?
Okay, so yeah, so I suppose right now, as we slowly come out of the pandemic, we talk to recruiters every day of the week, and some recruiters saying business is really bad because of the pandemic. There are other recruiters that are saying we've done really well because of the pandemic. So our observation is that probably those businesses that didn't do as well during the challenging times, they were probably pretty brittle beforehand, and they were probably sailing pretty close to the wind. There are other recruiters that seem to thrive regardless of what was going on worldwide. And look, to be fair, there's a number of reasons for that. I think one of the things that's quite interesting is those that seem to do better tend to have a different mindset. So they take responsibility for what's going on in their business. Because that you can do something about. There's a pandemic, or we're coming out of a pandemic, hopefully. That in itself, nobody can do anything about that. So I thought that was quite interesting. But I think the biggest difference there, to answer your question, was really around mindset and just how different recruiters viewed the exact same challenge.
So, are there certain sectors that you found that were doing better, or is it?
Yeah, to be fair, yeah, we were. So, yeah, if you were in hospitality or something like that, but even those guys that were in, and we worked with a couple of guys in North America who were in hospitality, but they kind of got out of it pretty quickly because we all realised that working in hospitality at that particular time wasn't a good idea. So, yeah, there are particular niches that suffered more, but everybody had the opportunity to pivot and go into another sector. Some did, some didn't.
Okay, So when you talk about the mindset, what is it about that mindset, or are there some things to look out for or to do, I guess?
Yeah. Do you want to take that, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, I think lots of things. I think I always sort of like drill it down to ego. Ego being the problem that we all have, where we don't want to be wrong about things. We don't want to, we're scared of putting ourselves out there, scared of being criticised. So I think that's probably, if I was going to sum it up into one thing, it'll be that. And there's lots of ways it holds us back or stops us doing certain things. But for me, especially I think now people are sort of coming out of it and doing well. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. But I think, especially during the pandemic, from what I saw, it was the ones who were willing to adapt to what they were doing. The ones who were willing to, I guess, accept that, yes, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that we can't control and that we, ultimately have no influence over, but there's a lot, especially internally, that we can control. So rather than focusing on what we can't control and, blaming, pointing fingers, complaining, doing nothing, bringing it back in, okay, what can I have an impact on? What things can I do personally? What things can I get my team to do? What, where can I look? And I think for me, it was the people that were willing to do that, sooner rather than later, that really, regardless of sector, regardless of industry, regardless of country, really came out of it thriving rather than struggle through it. And I think even now, the market's obviously picked up a lot. But again, I think it comes down to mindset, because I think there's still sort of a hangover of the pandemic. So there's a lot of desperation at the moment. The market's picked up, but people are taking on work they shouldn't really take on, because they've still got this mindset thing about we lost so much last year. Now I'm sort of more desperate, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess that probably, if you're going to pivot into a different area, I guess it's really about maybe, client attraction and a new type of clients that you want to go after. So is that something, you can talk about, or is that what you're doing to help, other companies or owners to attract new clients that they maybe didn't attract before?
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. And just to recap on what Drew said about the ego.
Yeah.
The ego is like an overprotective parent that's kind of there to protect you, but doesn't always serve you. So if you think of the overprotective parent that says, "Look, don't go out unless you've got your coat and your scarf on, and don't play football with those big boys because you might get yourself hurt," and that type of thing. And that's what the ego does to us in terms of our thinking. So how it can manifest itself is that one of the things we were saying to clients to recruiters, look, working on contingency at lousy fees and working with probably bluntly lousy clients probably isn't serving you. And you may want to consider, working with different sort of clients or working a different way. But then the ego gets and saying, well, I've always done it this way, or, these are the only clients that I've got. And we say, well, I get they're the only clients you've got right now, but you do have the choice who you work with. So anybody that's working with a lousy client, ultimately, at some level, it's a choice that you're making, because you don't have to work with those lousy clients. And then the other one people say is, yeah, but in my market, I don't know, people won't pay a higher fee, or in my market, they won't pay a retainer. And the response to that is, you're right, not everybody's going to pay a higher fee, and not everybody's going to pay a retainer. But you don't need everybody. You just need some people to pay you a higher fee, and some people to pay perhaps on the retainer, and just a few good clients rather than half a dozen lousy clients. So what we work on is really showing them how they can do that. But a lot is, I keep coming back to this, it is about the mindset. If they come into the conversation, well, there's nothing can be done, or a common one, I've been in the business for 20 years, what can you teach me? And that type of attitude, well, not a thing. But there's an example of the ego kind of getting in the way, because they want to portray this image of, I know all there is to know, and I've been in this industry for 20 years. Well, that kind of thinking isn't going to serve anyone.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Then, so what do what advice do you give them, or how do you get them to change their mindset?
I'll let Drew answer this time.
I think if they change their mindset, I think it's an ongoing process. I don't think anyone sort of comes to us with one, it's not like an instant thing. I think, analogy that we often like to use, like a garden. And yeah, you can tidy the garden, mow the lawn, de-weed it once, but they're going to grow back, right? You can have these past demons or self-sabotaging habits or beliefs that come up from things that were perhaps out of our control. But it's about constant work. So what are you doing? And I think in terms of it's about, I guess, what habits that you put into your day. Like one of my big things is like, what are you doing first thing in the morning? What is your morning routine? Because I think that we've all had days where you get out of bed, you jump out of bed, you stub your toe, and the whole day seems to be going bad. And you're viewing the negatives in the day, or you get an email from a client who wants to pull the plug, or lots of different things can happen. All these things are outside of our control, right? They're going to happen whether we like it or not. But it's about like, how do you, I guess, protect yourself against that?
Yeah. So
you can start your day right, set your day up right in the first place. I guess it almost builds a force field against that. Because again, we've all had days where we get one piece of good news in the morning, or something goes really well in the morning, and then the rest of the day we've faced the same challenges that we do every other day. But because we enter the day in the right mindset, they just things are just bouncing off us. So it's about rather than letting that happen by chance, which I think what most of us do, how can we intentionally set our day up right so we're entering in that frame of mind? Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, the thing about habits is that it's whatever position you're in now. Drew used the analogy of the garden, or keep fit or whatever. Whatever position a business is in right now, it's merely the reflection of habits that they perform in over the last year, maybe even 2 years. So if you see somebody that was overweight, you don't become suddenly overweight. You don't become suddenly fit. It is an ongoing thing. It's those consistent habits, positive or negative, that are going to get you there. And it's easy to do. Let's be clear about it. It's easy to. I mean, I think a good example is when to come back to the lockdown. We had the lockdown and we couldn't go out, so it was easy to think, oh, do you know what? I have a glass of wine with every meal now, and I have some Pringles.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we sit and watch the film or whatever, and it's before you know it, that's a habit that you're then having a bottle of wine and a packet of Pringles every evening with your meals. Well, that's okay every now and then, but if you're then doing that for 18 months, we know the implications of that. And exactly the same thing with the clients. If every time a client says to you, "Oh, I can get it cheaper down the road," you go, "Okay, I'll compete with somebody down the road at 10% or whatever," and that's the habits that you do. Then we know what's going to happen. If you've got no, I suppose, the standards where you go, actually, I won't do anything below 18%. I'm only going to work with clients who value and respect me and the service that I offer, rather than a hired help that they tell me to jump and I'm kind of asking how hard do you want me to jump. These are all habits, and as Drew said, you can't say somebody can't join our program and say, "We'll change those overnight," because you can't. The whole thing with fees is really interesting. The fees that you charge, because they're often about your own self-esteem, because nobody can charge more than they think they're worth. So if you don't think you're worth 30%, if some recruiters are charging 33%, you'll never be able to get it. Now they will blame the market, say my market won't pay that. But actually, it's only about your own personal self-worth.
Yeah, and I guess it's the value you're giving your clients. So if they really think you're worth it, and how much time you're saving them, and probably not just the recruitment part, but also giving them, I don't know if they're maybe focused on a niche or something, so that they really know that part of the market. So the client knows that when I need somebody, I know somebody who knows this market really, really well, rather than, let's say, a generalist who could maybe hire somebody at a low rate. Is that sort of
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think in general, like, recruiters severely undervalue what they do and undervalue the impact they can have on a candidate, but also a client as well. And again, it's all about ego. They're just looking at themselves rather than looking at the difference they're actually making to the client they're serving, and also the candidates that they're placing as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, as recruiters, we do have a lot of, I should say, I don't know if I want to say power, but, how we treat candidates and how important it is for them. Because for us, it might just be one fee, but for them, that's probably going to be their livelihood. So you really want to make sure that you treat them well and get them a job that they want. And both sides are happy, because otherwise, down the road, you'll get a bad name from the candidate, and probably the client will also not talk very highly of you or stop using you.
Yeah.
So you gave me an idea. One example was start your day right. So I guess, what do you mean by that? Maybe I have some ideas, but maybe it's better if I let you explain what you mean by that.
So do you want to do it? Or?
Yeah, you take it. Yeah.
So there's no right or wrong. Well, so there's no like this is the way you do it and nothing else works. But for us in our program with the recruitment and social business we help, we use a tool that we actually got from a company called Traffic and Funnels, and they've got this tool that they call the Morning Formula, and it's basically like a document that you get up and you read every morning, right? And the first part of it would be like almost like a letter to the future, letter to yourself, and what you want your life to be like, right? So you're reading it to yourself, as in, my name's Drew Edwards, I've achieved this, I've achieved that. So you read it to yourself. Then it's got like a vision board part where it's more visual, and it's looking at things that you want to achieve or want to, could be possessions that you want to own, or particular places you want to go, something like that, experience you want to live, like a more visual element. And then it's got affirmations, and it's got like a letter to yourself as well. And that those sort of four things we call the four critical pillars form like if you're doing that every day, you see the difference with people in our programs. Like when they do it, they just become bulletproof. And it's that like people always come to us for tactics and strategies, like, oh, how do I win more clients with email, or how do I get better on the phone? But it's really that foundation that helps people do all those things, charge higher fees, really enjoy their business. Because I think sometimes when you go out on your own, we do it for freedom. Most people, you do it for the freedom that you get from owning the business, and then somewhere along the line, people lose that and end up being a prisoner to the business rather than it being the thing that fuels their freedom. And so I think for business owners especially, and no better time than last year, right? It was difficult for everybody in terms of mental health and well-being, but I think if we can protect our minds and control what's going on in our minds, that has an immeasurable impact on our business performance. You think about sales, like we've all been in sales meetings where we haven't felt quite right, and it affects your performance, versus when for some reason or another you feel on top of the world and you perform better in the sales meeting, like you get your points across better, the client you resonate with the clients better, everything's sort of working for you. So I think the more we can influence that, the more power we can really have to grow.
Yeah, it's what we do is as humans, we perform to our identity. So if your identity is, I find really interesting. Most recruiters that I talk to who are owners now previously worked for a bigger firm, and the bigger firm that they work for, I talk to a guy and I say, what was your average billings when you were employed? And I say, I do 180, 250 a year. I said, what about now? How are you doing now? They said, well, I haven't done any more than 120 a year. You want to look at that. Why is it that when you're employed by somebody else, you can do almost twice as much, but now you're working for yourself, you're doing less, and part of it is your identity. If your identity is, well, I'm an independent recruiter and I can't get to those numbers, and my clients won't pay me a higher fee, and I'm not very good at sales, and I don't like. If all those things are your identity, that's what you can perform to. And the whole thing with the morning routine is challenging that identity and saying, actually, there's probably a better version of you that would serve you better. But we can only perform to what we believe is our identity, and that's why you'll get some people who will then literally argue for their own limitations. Yeah, and the conversation usually starts with, yeah, but in my market, in my country, I spoke to a guy the other day, and he said, he's based in France. He said, nobody in France is using external recruiters. They're all doing it in-house. I said, nobody. He said, I'm telling you, nobody. Well, he truly believes that, and that's part of his identity. So that's his argument as to why he's struggling. Of course, there's no truth in it, but if that's his identity, he can only perform to what he believes. So the whole purpose of the morning formula is to just create a better identity for yourself than perhaps you've got now. And the whole thing with the affirmations is just to have better conversations with ourselves. We all talk to ourselves on a regular basis, and sadly, most of the time when we're talking to ourselves, the conversation is pretty negative. And just being consciously aware of that and saying, actually, there's some things that I'm really good at. Let me make a list of the things that I'm really good at. Let me remind myself of those things on a regular basis. Because as Drew said, the results come from your thinking. We can show you some really clever techniques around marketing, client attraction. We can share with you some ninja marketing techniques. But if your head is into the right place, it counts for absolutely nothing. And it's all to do with the conversation. One of the big challenges that recruiters have is they have this it's called imposter syndrome. So they say things like, who am I to ask for higher fees? I feel a bit of an imposter doing this. And that's all to do with your own personal identity. And the moment you, first of all, acknowledge it and then say, actually, that's what's going on. That's the BS, quite frankly, that's going on. And I'm now committed to do something about it. That's where the changes come.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I mean, there are a lot of people, sometimes they blame it on their sector because maybe the salaries are not as high. So they say, I can't charge as much because it's, such a big amount and so on. So you would say you would do this kind of visioning every morning, sort of the first thing you do. And then, so I guess, is there a little bit more detail you can share or?
I'm not sure if we say more detail. In what way when you say more detail?
Well, I'm just trying to understand, I guess when you're looking at it, waking up in the morning, are you trying to talk to yourself and say, look, this is what I'm going to do today. This is what I need to change today. Or what is it people are, what are you getting people to work on? I guess I should.
Yeah. That's better. Yeah. So I suppose the answer to that question is you're getting to work on the life that they truly desire rather than what is now. So if we work with a few guys and their goal is they're solo recruiters. So they want to do $1 million a year as solo recruiters. Now, some solo recruiters say, well, that's physically, and you just can't do that. Well, these guys are saying, well, actually, if I win 2 retainers a month at 40,000, I'm actually going to work just on 2 retainers a month every month. So their identity is they work at high end. In fact, I was talking to the guy this morning. He won't do anything below 160,000.
Yeah.
And he's positioned himself as the leading expert in his particular niche that does nothing below 160,000. So he's talking to CEOs in this particular niche at those big roles. But ultimately, what he wants to do is he wants to invoice $1 million a year every year to solo recruiters. Now, well, let's be clear, he outsources. He's got some virtual people working with him, but he works from home and he's on target to do 80,000 a month every month as a solo recruiter. But that's his identity. You would talk to another recruiter, they'll say that's physically impossible and no recruiter can do more than 200,000. Well, that's their identity. I keep coming back to this, but whatever you believe is true.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's I think I did NLP years ago, and it was very much about visualizing where you want to get to and then getting there. But you have to work on it and probably get yourself out of your comfort zone because you feel like you want to just stay where you are right now.
That's right. But staying in your comfort zone will get you the results that you've got up until this point.
Exactly.
To get the results you want, the bigger results or better results, you're going to have to step outside. This is where your ego comes in and says, but if you step outside, it's dangerous out there. You're going to get criticized. You're going to fail. And that's the other thing as well. You've got to be okay with failure. Because to achieve whatever you want to achieve, you're going to screw up sometimes. That's life. But the ego will say, no, don't post that thing on LinkedIn or don't send out that email because somebody might criticize you. I've got some news for you. You're going to get criticized. That's guaranteed.
And it probably won't matter whether you do well or poorly. You're going to get,
absolutely
trolled or whatever in any case. So, how could you get maybe recruitment managers or hiring managers to work with you a bit more, or what do you have to do to engage them?
Do you want to take that through?
I think probably the biggest reason that people don't win as much business as they want is obscurity. It's nothing to do with how good they are as recruiters. It's all to do with actually the people that the clients they want don't even know they exist, and if they don't know you exist, they can never buy from you. Again, go back to the pandemic, like when people were saying that they lost out on business or things got put on hold, it got put on hold with their small network of clients that they work with, right? So most recruiters have like a handful of clients who they work with regularly, loyal clients of theirs, but they have no way of expanding that. How do I increase my client base? So I think, the first step to doing that is I guess, fighting against obscurity, getting yourself known, putting yourself out there, and it comes back to the comfort zone thing. Because in order to do that, you're going to have to maybe post a video on LinkedIn, or send an email, or do something outside of the realms of what you're doing now. And obviously, when you do that, or inevitably when you do that, the more people that know you, the more people there is to criticize you and tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, and tell you that you're rubbish, and all the things that we talk about. So it's about how, can you overcome that fear, or not even overcome the fear? I don't know if it will ever disappear, but can you understand the fear but still do it anyway? Because understanding that in order to get what you want, you have to do it. In order to have the business you want, this is something, just a process that you have to do. And then it's really about once you get known, like it's really like client attraction is simple. It's have the hiring manager or decision maker know who you are, have a way of getting an appointment with that person. So you can speak with them on the phone or on Zoom or on team meetings, wherever it is. The more conversations you have, the more opportunities you have. Then it's like, okay, well, once we've got the volume of opportunities up, how do we convert more of those into paying clients for the right fee and on the right terms? And for us, the right terms is going to mean, our company is called Make More Placements, fill more of the roles you're working on. So that's going to mean, rather than it being on contingency, where you're typically competing with multiple other recruiters, and therefore your fill rate suffers, actually let's find a way to gain trust with the potential clients. So they want to work with us exclusively. Because if we're exclusive, we're the only recruiter working on it, you stand a lot better chance of filling that. Therefore, you're happy because obviously you're getting paid. But more importantly, I think the client's happy. They want their vacancy filled with the best person. They want it filled with the least hassle. So if they don't have to deal with multiple recruiters to get the outcome they want, they're going to be happy about that, right? So how do we get that across to the client? Because sometimes they think, well, if I'm only using one recruiter, I'm missing out on all these other candidates, which again often isn't the case. Most time isn't the case. But it's like, how do we get that across? So that comes down to sales, and then it comes down to like, how do we, I guess, streamline both of those two things so we can still deliver on our promises and scale. So it's really not that complex when you sort of break it down, and that's really what we work on. But it's more about how do you what does the specifics look like in your business, and every sector is different, right? Some hiring managers, some decision makers are on LinkedIn, and you might work in a sector where, obviously we target recruiters, right? Most recruiters are on LinkedIn, so that's going to be a big platform for us. If you work with a sector where they don't use LinkedIn, it's not going to be as big a platform for you. So you need to find another way to reach them and get in front of them. So it's about, understanding the basics like we went through, but then also understanding, okay, well, my ideal client, this is what they look like, this is where they hang out, this is where, this is the media they respond to. How do we get in front of them? Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, you've kind of covered a bit, but there are four main reasons why a client won't buy from you. They don't have a need for what you do, they don't know you, they don't like you, and they don't trust you. So all the client attraction is about is to, first of all, identify those hiring managers that what we call have a future need. So not the hiring manager that's hiring today. So hiring manager's hiring today on the 2nd of June. You call them and they say, yeah, I'm hiring at the moment, and I've got 4 of your competitors working on this. Well, you're too late. You want to talk to a hiring manager that says, actually, I'm going to be hiring next month. You want to be at the front of the queue, so there's a chance you get there on an exclusive basis. But there's only a small percentage of the hiring managers that will be hiring. So that's why one of the challenges with cold calling, it's like throwing mud against the wall, trying to find, you can spend all day trying to find those hiring managers. There are other methods where the hiring managers will literally raise their hand and say, actually, there's things you can do in marketing that will tell you that they're in the market for what you do. And then you've got to get them to know you, like you, and trust you. And that's an ongoing process. Because the moment they know you and trust you, then you position it as you want a higher fee and you want this on a retained basis. There's so much less pushback. Because ultimately, what's interesting, only, I think, price or the fee that recruiter charges is the 4th to 5th most important thing on the hiring manager's mind. It's not the be all and end all. Now, look, there's a percentage who, quite honestly, if Drew offers it at 25% and I offer it at 23%, I'm going to get the business. But if somebody else obviously at 21%, they get the business. Now there is that percentage of the market that's about 20% of the market. But the majority, that isn't what they are. And here's another thing, just very quickly on price. There's a small percentage, about 15%, that will pay for a premium service if the recruiter offers a premium service. There's a premium in everything, by the way. Premium jewelry, watches, cars, everything. There's always a market for a premium. Now, very few recruiters offer a premium service. But the moment that you do, you can charge accordingly. So there's recruiters out there that charge 45% for a premium service. The senior roles, 300,000. And the hiring manager goes, okay. But that's about offering it and then asking for it as well. So I've kind of digressed there, but it is about the client, hiring manager won't know buy from you unless they have a need, know you, like you, and trust you. Notice there's a question here from Debbie asking, which is a great question, by the way, Debbie. You know, what are some of the ways that you can coach people around imposter syndrome? And it's, do you know what, Debbie? We probably get asked this more than anything. It's one of the most popular questions. And very simply, Debbie, and anybody else that has this thing about who am I to, and you consider yourself a bit of an imposter. The moment you start thinking like that, it's merely an indication that you're thinking about yourself. You see, when you're talking to the hiring manager, when you're posting on LinkedIn or sending out an email, or when you're interviewing the candidate, your focus should be on them. So if you're talking to the hiring manager, your focus should be on them and the benefit you can bring to them. So every hiring manager will have three main challenges around time, team, and money. And your offering is to help solve that problem. Very few recruiters actually place a candidate in a job where they're going to earn less, and the recruiter thinks it's a shitty role, to put it bluntly. The majority of times when you place a candidate, 95% of the time, they're probably going to earn more than they were earning before. So that has an impact on that individual, that family, and that community. And they're the things, Debbie, that you focus on. So the moment you focus on yourself, all these question marks come up about yourself. If you sit there and look the hiring manager in the eyes and say, let's have a conversation about how I can help you achieve your business objectives. Now it's about them.
Yeah.
If you then look the candidate in the eye and say, let's have a conversation on how I can help enhance your career and bring some more money into your family. The focus is all on them. So very short answer, Debbie, it's about focusing on others rather than yourself. The moment you've got that imposter syndrome or discomfort, you've had to focus on yourself to get that feeling. Let me know if that makes sense, Debbie, and that answers your question.
Yeah, that was a great question.
I think
yeah, just to add to that, like I think, I obviously agree with, I think you said Terry there as well, but I think also like we need to understand that the feeling of imposter syndrome is part of the process, and really it's a sign that you're stepping outside your comfort zone. Like that's when you think about your first day in a new job or your first day starting a business. That's when you get it. It's when you step into something new, which is as we just said before. It's almost like we need to normalize the feeling of imposter syndrome to an extent. Like yes, we need to get past it, or for whatever level that we're at. But we also need to look for what's the next. Well, again, assuming we want to grow, what's the next level? And when we step into that level, we're going to feel it again, and we need to sort of accept that. It's part of the process, that every time that we push for growth, you're going to get a feeling of, almost you're going to make a decision before your mind is ready, if that makes sense. And you're going to get this feeling of imposter syndrome, whether it's about, the market you're entering, your fees, the level of your business, like wherever you're at, it's almost like it's a constant demon or feeling that's going to come back, but just normalize it, accept that it's going to happen, but then the more you do it, the more you stay at that level. Like the first day in your job, 2 months in, you no longer feel like that. It's like the more you do it, the more you sort of sit with that. You just move past it. But then you need to look for, where's my next level, and then it's going to happen again.
So, what kind of things could you do to then, besides regular contact, obviously, because you need that, until the say the hiring manager is looking for someone. Are there certain things you can do to help you, besides regular contact, to like build this rapport with that hiring manager and build trust? And are there certain things you would suggest a recruiter does?
True.
Yeah, 100%. It's again, so we use a process, that we call the 3-step process: plant, nurture harvest. So plant is just, again, beating that obscurity thing, planting the seed so the hiring manager knows who you are. Then what you're really talking about is the nurture process, where we need them to view us as an authority in the marketplace. Now, you can do that when you speak to someone one-on-one. Like we're speaking now, you can ask questions, they can ask questions, and you can demonstrate your authority with your answers. But I think when we're trying to hit, a market at a wider scale, a lot of that comes down to the content that you put out. So whether that's, video, written, or audio content, again, content like this, you don't have to be, invited to be interviewed. Like you sitting at home or in your office recording a video speaking about a particular topic, putting that out on LinkedIn, getting eyeballs on it, basically, getting your hiring manager to see it. The more you can do that, that's what builds authority. That's what builds trust, because you're demonstrating your knowledge, you're demonstrating your expertise without expecting anything in return. And then, plant, last thing is, how do I, once you've got that, how do you get them to into a meeting? But that's a lot easier when you have that authority. So if you send out an email or a video and it's got 10 things you need to know before you make the next hire, for example, with the technology you have now, you can see who's viewed that video. You can see who's opened the email, clicked the video. You now calling those 10, 20, 100 people who clicked the video and saying, hey, it's Drew here, I saw you watching the video yesterday. It becomes easy because, one, they know who you are, obviously. Two, they've seen you talk about a subject that they're interested in, and you've already helped them. So then when you trying to get the appointment, trying to move into the next stage of the relationship, it's a lot easier then versus when it's completely cold. And when it's completely cold, no matter how good your script is, you sound like another recruiter they've spoken to, because you have no authority, and it's difficult to build it in one call. It's definitely possible, but it's more difficult to build it in one call versus where if we've done it with marketing beforehand and then we call them, a lot of the heavy lifting is already done. So it's almost like leveraging your outreach, if that makes sense. Is there anything to that?
No, you summed that really well, Drew. Yeah, there's nothing really else to add to that. You've done it before, haven't you, Drew?
For sure. I mean, we have some guys on the show as well that have talked about like account-based marketing and how much it really does help to kind of enforce, I guess, your knowledge in a certain space, so that you then become a trusted advisor of maybe that sector. So yeah, that makes sense. So I don't. Before I ask you for maybe some takeaways that, people who've been watching the show today can walk away with, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we do that? Or what do you think?
Yeah, for me, that hasn't really come up, but I want to talk about just what we see in the market at the moment. There's a lot of, came out of the pandemic, demand's gone right up, right? There's a lot of jobs in the market at the moment. And what I'm seeing is recruiters are really happy taking on jobs left, right, and centre, and it's really good. And you're seeing people post about how many jobs they've got on. But again, like one of we have this conversation with clients is like, it's not about the volume of roles that you take on, it's about the quality. What's your chances of filling them? And I think sometimes we can get fooled, or I don't know if the word fooled, but it can almost mask bigger issues when we have lots of jobs on. But I'm speaking to recruiters on the phone. It's like, okay, like how many of them do you expect them to fill? It's like 20%, 30%. And like the truth is, as harsh as it sounds, because I know sometimes in some sectors it's the norm. Like if you're only filling 30% of the roles you're working on, it means that your service has a 70% failure rate, right? But and that's not me trying to criticize anybody as a recruiter. It's not about you as a recruiter. It's about the quality of the contract that you sold, right? So this is why we push and advise to get exclusivity. It's not about like you. It's not just about you making more money. Yes, that's great, but it's more about actually if you can, win a client, but win them on terms that allow you to do your best work, allow you to boost your fill rate from 30, 40% to 80, 90%. The client has more success. You have more success. Everybody's happy. And I think if there's one sort of thing I could change about the industry as a whole, it would be let's stop taking on contingency roles where we're competing with each other, feeling rushed to fill a role because we know that if we don't do it quickly, our competitor's going to send the same candidate over and we've lost. Like let's let's sell better contracts and really raise standard of the service that we deliver. Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, it brings us back nicely to the whole thing about the imposter syndrome. Again, if you're focusing on getting it exclusive and about the benefit to you, that creates discomfort. If you focus and you communicate to the hiring manager the benefit to them working with you exclusively, there's no discomfort, there's no imposter syndrome here, because look, I'm having this conversation about how I can best serve you. Now, some hiring managers say that isn't for me, which is fine. It doesn't mean they're wrong, it just means they're not right for you, and you just move on.
Yeah.
It's worth considering the numbers. If for every 10 jobs you get, you fill 2 or 3 of them, so most of the time you're working, not getting paid. It's worth considering, well, actually, why not just take on 2 or 3 jobs exclusively and just fill those?
Very well said. Exactly.
Yeah, and if you've got a team of consultants and you're paying a team of consultants to work on contingent, but most of the time you're paying them, but they're not going to fill the. It's worth looking at.
Yeah.
It's really worth looking at. Now, a lot of people say, well, my market and whatever. And here's a fact. Your market won't pay you retainer or pay you on exclusives if you don't ask. The majority of recruiters never ask and don't know how to ask in a way that benefits the client. One of the things that we do is we share with you, there's language you can use that makes it beneficial to the client to do it. So ideally, one of the things we say is actually don't sell it, lean out a bit and get your client to buy it. By asking a series of questions, the client will, ideally what you want the client to say was, yeah, that makes sense. How can we do that? Because now the client's buying and people enjoy buying, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and certainly what we do as well is we only work on exclusivity just for that reason, because rather than taking on contingency clients and having all this competition, it's like I'd rather work on a few roles with a much higher success rate, and then my only competition really is the client. If somebody happens to apply directly, but then that's just bad luck. But hey, it happens.
Yeah.
So, but your chances are way better, and the client, if you, I guess, gave them really good candidates, next time they have another need, they'll come back to you because they say, well, actually, you did give us really good candidates. We just happened to get lucky.
Mm.
So, I really like that, when you say that, really get them to buy your service as opposed to you try to sell your service to them.
Mm.
So I would definitely say that would be one of the takeaways we should probably give our audience today, because, I think that's a great one.
Mm.
What do you think, Drew? Do you have one you want to add to that?
Me? I think the other one would be just work on your mindset first. If that people, and I've been the same, so I'm saying this not to criticize other people, but people really, really underestimate how important it is, and it's a bit, it's a bit woo, it's a bit out there almost, and it's almost like you just neglect it, but it's one of the most important things that you could do if you want to grow your business or improve any area of your life, really. I think the more time and energy and effort people spend on that area, like everything else will be so much easier. So that'd be the other sort of key takeaway, because that's the backbone of marketing, sales, everything.
Yeah.
Just add one more. It's a pretty short and sweet one. Nobody cares about you. Your LinkedIn profile, when you talk all about yourself, nobody cares. When you go onto your website and you detail your mission statement and how long you've been in the business, got some really bad news. Nobody actually cares. So nobody cares about you. If you can kind of remember that, and in your emails, I just want to introduce myself. Nobody cares. But if you can communicate the challenges that your hiring manager is having right now and how you care about their challenges, then you're going to get people's interest.
Yeah. Actually, those are 3 really great tips. Because you're right. If you make it about them and really you're solving their problems that they have, then they will listen to you, because you understand my problem. Okay.
Yeah.
Now what do we do about it? And I guess if you don't have a solution, you just say you don't, and too bad. But if you do, at least you have a chance now to sell them what they want to buy.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, thank you for that. I'll just see what we have next week. So we've got, I believe it's Louise is on next week. And she is got Tom Hadley on the show. and it's about opportunities for recruiters in the post-pandemic era. So look forward to that at 1 p.m. next Wednesday. Drew, Cherry, thank you so much for your time today. It was really a great chat, and we'll look forward to seeing you hopefully soon in the future and meet you in person, because I know you don't live too far away from me, so that's nice.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks very much for having us on. Yeah, it's a real pleasure. And as we also, thanks for the feedback as well. And until next time, folks, take care, take action, and be real. Cheers,
and I'll put in some links to your LinkedIn profiles as well in the comments, so that if people want to connect with you, is that the best way to start at least?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, super. Thank you very much.
Take care. Cheers. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.